Welcome to part 2 of our series on the ultimate chicken enclosure. Today we're going to cover how to make it an enriched environment so your chickens aren't bored and they've got lots of fun things to do.
Welcome to English Country Life. My name's Fiona and together with my lovely husband Hugh, we run a small holding homestead here in Lincolnshire in the UK, and this is the ultimate chicken enclosure. If you haven't watched part 1, go and have a look and you can see why we've chosen this. But we are going to be using this for our UK flock down in winter, but there's all sorts of reasons for having one, and there's no reason why an enclosure like this can't be a permanent home for your chickens. But what we're going to be covering today is enrichment, because without enrichment and things to keep your chickens happy, it can encourage some bullying behaviour. So we're going to be talking about things in 3 sections today. We're going to be looking at items of enrichment which also have a welfare dual purpose. We're then going to be looking at just the fun stuff which we put in to keep the chickens happy. And finally, food treats which are also stimulating. So let's have a look at our first category, which are those things which have a dual purpose with welfare.
For me, one of the most important parts of welfare and enrichment for any chicken enclosure, indoors or outdoors, is shelter. Your chickens are going to need shelter from a variety of things. On a bright, hot, sunny day, they're going to want shelter from the sun. They need shade. And you'll see with our flock in the orchard, they love the areas where there's a dense canopy of leaves, and when it's a really hot day, they'll be there in the shade, not overheating. When it's really windy, because the Orpingtons are heavy feathered, they hate having that wind in their feathers and they want somewhere to get out of the wind. When it's raining hard, they want somewhere to get out of the rain. Now, all of these factors combined, but they don't always want to be in the coop. I think they're quite sort of nosy creatures. They like seeing what's going on around them. So some shelter that isn't the coop is a fantastic thing to do for your chickens. This is the simplest form that I make. This is just a plywood roof covered in roofing felt, and underneath it 3 sides of tongue and groove wood, but it provides a great little shelter, and you can get 3 or 4 hens in there. And what we prefer is to offer a variety of shelters in a variety of places, partly because it stops boredom. If they've only got one place to go, it's dull, but also because if you've got some birds that are lower down the pecking order, they may choose to shelter away from some of the other more dominant members of the flock, and it gives them an area where they can feel safe and secure and out of the elements. As soon as you create a sheltered area, it's going to be dry underneath. As soon as it's dry underneath, particularly in the winter, your chickens are going to want to dust bathe in there, and they need to dust bathe. Don't try and stop that behaviour. That's the way that they clean and sanitize their feathers. But what we suggest is find an area that's suitable for dust bathing, give it a big enough shelter to keep the rain off, and build them something to dust bathe in. That can be as simple as a dry area of ground. We've made this enclosure, which looks really elaborate. Actually, it's the top of Fiona's old swing seat, but don't tell her I stole it. It's a side that keeps the wind off, just made out of tongue and groove. It's an old tractor tyre from Dave the engineer. It's a bit of builded sand. It's really knocked together out of some stuff that we had available, even a couple of offcuts of Wrigley tin. I guess what I'm trying to say here is use what you've got. Use what you've got lying around, the smallholders creed. Yeah, I've made some that are simple wooden boxes. I've made them out of other materials. It doesn't matter. What matters is you've got an area where your chickens can get clean. You'll also find that they'll just use it as a hangout, as a regular shelter as well, but it is useful to control where they dust bathe. Let's talk coops. This is going to be particularly our winter enclosure, and the perfect coop choice for that is a Nistera raised coop, because we get a bonus shelter underneath it. And it's fantastic. For very little extra money, we get a shelter thrown in. It gives another area. Now, if your run is a little bit smaller, then that can be a fantastic addition. You may not have lots of room in your enclosure for extra shelters, so just simply raising the coop gives that opportunity for an outside shelter. For us, it's not the kind of coop that we would use for a broody, because chicks would struggle with the steps, but for mature hens in a winter run, it's absolutely perfect. We get a shelter and a coop for the price of one. On the subject of shelter, please don't dismiss the humble tarpaulin. I want to show you this one, and this one comes with these enclosures from Garden Life Direct as an optional extra, and they really have some advantages. First time that we used them was last year. We had a ridiculously hot day, and when I say ridiculously hot, it was over 40 centigrade, over 100 Fahrenheit here, and we had a hen in a broody coop inside one of these enclosures. Now, if you've watched our video on the temperatures of coops, you'll know that adding shade makes the biggest possible difference to controlling temperatures on those ridiculously hot days. And that's what we did. And how do we do it? Well, these tarpaulins come with reinforced eyelets on them. And they also come supplied with these elasticated grommets with a toggle on the end. And all you have to do to put the tarpaulin on is feed it through the eyelet, poke the elastic through the wire and back again on the side of the enclosure and loop it over the toggle, and it holds the tarpaulin fantastically firmly. So on a really hot day, you can attach a tarpaulin to the side of your enclosure and provide shade. You could also do that to provide a windbreak on a really windy day. The other thing I think that we need to think about, particularly when we're talking about housing restrictions and avian influenza, is you do need to cover anywhere you've got your feeders. So if you're using feeder treats, if you've got an open feeder, then use a tarpaulin over the roof section of your enclosure. That will provide protection from falling feces from wild birds, prevent contamination, and help you make sure that you're managing your biosecurity.
Hugh's shown you putting food under tarpaulins or in shelters, and that's part of the flock down rules. So let's just have a look at some food treats. Now, I've got two sections here. We've got food dispensers and we've got food treats themselves. Now, what we favour both for dispensers and food treats are things which the chickens really have to work at, to be honest. And that's because there's an entertainment value, but there's also a cost element as well, because you don't want them guzzling and getting through things really quickly, because it just then costs a fortune. Essentially what we want our chickens to be doing is filling up on their pelleted food, because that's beautifully nutritionally balanced. And then these really are treats. So if they have to work at it, that's an added bonus. But we do tend to put out food dispensers and treats later in the day, so they do fill up on that pelleted food first of all. Anyway, I'm rambling. Right, so let's have a look at some of these dispensers, because these are really quite fun and entertaining to watch your chickens have a go at. The first one is this one, and it's called a chicken ball. And all it is essentially, it's two bits of plastic, there's a sphere, it opens up, put treats inside, close it up, it's held together with a bit of elastic, and then either end it dispenses seeds. And the chickens, they really have to roll it around and work at it, and you'll be surprised how quickly they learn how to use this. But it's hours of entertainment. The next dispenser to show you is this, and this is from Omlet. And all you do is you put treats inside and the chickens hit it and the treats fall out. Now they've got two versions. This one is actually designed to be hung up, and this is our favoured version. But there is another which the top looks exactly the same as this, but it actually stands that way up, and it's on a flexible stick that you poke into the ground, and then the chickens can just hit it. Now if you don't have anywhere to hang a treat dispenser, those are a better option, and they are actually really reasonably priced, but they'll keep the chickens happy for hours. The final treat dispenser to show you is this one, which isn't designed for chickens, it's actually designed for dogs. And it's billed as a dog intelligence treat dispenser, because the idea is you've got these cylinders which are on this bar and they can swing around. Now to get the treats out, your chicken, your dog, whatever you are using this treat dispenser for, has to bop these cylinders really quite hard to turn them all the way around to get any treats out. And the reason I'm not showing you this with the chickens at the moment is we only had this delivered a couple of days ago, and the chickens have yet to learn how to use this, and that's half the fun of it, because they have to be engaged with it, and they are investigating, they are looking at it, but they haven't yet learned that to turn these around, that's how they get the treats out. Now, they are available in multiple formats. There are some wooden ones out there, and you'll see that all over social media. Those are really popular, but because we're putting this in an outdoor enclosure, we thought that the plywood that's used as the main wood as a component to make these up, that would actually delaminate, whereas this one is all plastic, and it's not our ideal material, it's not our favourite material. However, it is robust and it should last an awful lot longer. But what kinds of food treats do we give? So we give whole wheat here within these cylinders, but we do give some other food treats too, which are just food treats on their own. And our favourite are these pecking blocks, and these are alfalfa hay with bits of grain actually embedded in it. Now there's lots on the market that are available, but we prefer these ones from the Little Feed Company. And why is that? Well, the Little Feed Company source their alfalfa hay, and it's really good quality stuff, whereas most other companies, the main of the alfalfa is used for horse feed, and then what's left, so there's got a lot of dust involved in it, is used to make the blocks. So what we found with other makes is that they crumble, and actually when the chickens start to peck at them, there's dust and bits everywhere. But the Little Feed Company doesn't do that. They're using the main alfalfa crop for their blocks. But I've also got this beautiful hot pink hay net. And if you buy 4 of the blocks from Little Feed Company, you get a free mini hay net. But you can buy these separately as well. And it just means that those blocks can easily be popped inside and hung up from the enclosure itself, or if you're in a free range area, we do hang them from the trees, as you can see. Our favourite food treats for the chickens are ones which last a long time, which is why we like those alfalfa blocks. But as an alternative to keep the chickens happy, we also have these feldy blocks. Now they come in these pots, and that's because, well, look at that, that's absolutely massive. And those get hung up in the chicken enclosure, and they will probably, with about 14-15 chickens, that will last 10 to 14 days, so an awful long time. They come in all sorts of flavours. This one is mixed berries, but they also do a seaweed one and an original. So really quite interesting flavours. But all of these are available in the Amazon storefront, with the exception of the Little Feed Company blocks, but a link to their website is in the description down below.
Let's talk perches. Perching is a natural part of chicken behaviour. They come from jungle fowl, don't they? And they want to perch. And I think it's actually really important to give them that opportunity. Particularly if you've got some perches in different places at different heights. Any chicken that frankly just wants to get away from it for a bit. Maybe they're getting bullied, maybe they're a bit lower down the pecking order, maybe they're young. If you've got a nice high perch that's out of the way, they can get up there, they can have a bit of a rest, bit of a relax, feel safe and secure and away from the sort of noisy, boisterous main flock, and I think that's great for them. We've approached perching for our ultimate enclosure in 2 different ways. One of the biggest things we've got is this. This is the Omlet Poletree. It's an arrangement of upright, horizontal and movable perches, and it's very, very clever. It's designed to clip onto the wire of a wired enclosure, and it gives the chickens all sorts of places. You can adjust the heights of these perches, you can adjust the heights of the horizontals, you can screw on these, which are feeder bowls, to encourage them to explore and use the poultry. We found, I think, that the non-Orpingtons tend to be keener to use it. We have had Orpingtons that will quite happily go to the very top of it, but some of the older and more stately hens are probably less prone to flying up the top. As if you've got something like a leg bar, an old English pheasant fowl, they'll be bombing all over it, treating it like an adventure playground. They're not maintenance free. This is a few years old, and I've had to replace this bar this year. A lot of the perches want sanding. You can get this kind of thick dowel from B&Q and various builders merchants, so it's not a big chore to do it, but I'm just warning you, it's not maintenance free. And the other thing I would say is, you could make something with sort of different sized perches and different heights, etc., just out of this dowel and some screws, or even out of some tree branches if you're a bit handy. The other thing that we provide the chickens with, which they love, are chairs. We did it originally because we had some folding garden chairs that I think the table had got bust for. We had a couple of leftover chairs. We put it in the chicken enclosure, partly so we could sit on it when we were sort of hand feeding the chickens, etc. Blow me down, within a couple of days it was like, these are our chairs, and they were perched all over them. They were sat on the base, they were sat on the back. And the other day, Fiona and I went to one of our favourite shops, which would love to describe itself as an antique shop, but it really isn't. It's a good old-fashioned junk shop in a place called Horncastle. It does the sort of house clearance stuff. And if you go in there, there are these cavernous warehouse rooms full of old furniture, and you can pick out stuff for almost no money, particularly if it's mismatched. So we picked up a couple of these chairs with arms for them to perch on, big seats they can sit on, backs they can perch on, and like you can get them for a few pounds each, and the chickens love them.
That's all of the enrichment we're putting in, so they're protected from the wind, the rain, they've got places to get away from each other, they've got a dust bathing arrangement, they've got so much in there to keep themselves happy, including just things to play on like their activity poultry. Future episodes of this series will include housing, feeders, security, biosecurity, so come back and join us for those. If you have liked this content, give us a thumbs up down below. It really does help the channel. If you've got a question for us, leave it in the comment section and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit subscribe and the bell icon, a completely free service, and you'll get to know of every new video as soon as it goes live. But for now, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.